They came before Columbus, before the Mayflower, before borders even existed. Silent shadows crossing frozen tundras, braving oceans in makeshift vessels, leaving behind only fragments, bone shards, tools, whispers in the earth. For centuries, their story was shrouded in myth. Were they hunters from Siberia? Lost tribes from Asia? Or something far more unexpected? In remote caves, ancient burial grounds, and wind-swept cliffs, traces of the first Americans have taunted archaeologists for decades. The puzzle was massive. The stakes, even greater. Because hidden in the mystery of their origin lies the story of humanity's last great migration. But then, science made a breakthrough. A fragment of bone, no larger than a coin, held something extraordinary: preserved ancient DNA. And with it, the veil began to lift. What secrets were locked inside that genetic code? Could this finally reveal who really discovered the Americas? And if so, what does that say about the entire history we thought we knew? The race to uncover the true origin of America's first settlers has begun. For over a century, archaeologists have battled with a single haunting question: who were the first humans to set foot in the Americas? According to the long-standing Clovis theory, it all began around 13,000 years ago, when nomadic hunters crossed the Bering Land Bridge from Siberia into Alaska, chasing herds of mammoth and bison into the vast unknown. But cracks in that theory started appearing. Sites like Monte Verde in Chile, dating back over 14,000 years, and footprints preserved in White Sands, New Mexico, over 21,000 years old, sent shockwaves through the scientific world. How could humans be so far south, so early? The mystery grew even deeper. Hundreds of archaeological sites across North and South America revealed tools, hearths, and human remains that didn't match the timeline or the migration patterns of the Clovis culture. Each discovery seemed to challenge everything taught in history books. Were there earlier waves of migration? Could humans have arrived by sea, not land? Or had we completely misunderstood the very origin story of an entire continent? Layer upon layer, the evidence suggested a much older, more complex narrative. One where ancient peoples might have arrived in the Americas not just thousands, but tens of thousands of years before previously thought. Yet despite the growing mountain of clues, one thing was missing: biological proof. That is, until ancient DNA changed everything. It began in a cave forgotten by time. Hidden beneath layers of sediment in the highlands of western Nevada, archaeologists unearthed what seemed at first to be just another fragment: a sliver of human bone, brittle, weathered, silent. It came from Spirit Cave, a site excavated decades earlier but largely overlooked. The remains, originally believed to be around 2,000 years old, had been tucked away in museum storage for over half a century. But new radiocarbon dating shattered all assumptions. The bones were over 10,600 years old. That changed everything. Researchers quickly realized they had stumbled upon one of the oldest mummified human remains ever discovered in North America. But that was only the beginning, for inside those ancient bones was something no one had expected to find: intact genetic material, miraculously preserved across millennia. It was enough to attempt full DNA sequencing, something never before possible with remains so ancient on this continent. As the analysis began, tensions rose. What secrets would the genome of the so-called Spirit Caveman reveal? Was he a direct ancestor of modern Native American tribes, or a ghost from an entirely different lineage? Every chromosome could hold answers, or raise even more questions. The first piece of the puzzle was in place. Now, the real investigation could begin. The team of geneticists and archaeologists knew they were treading on sacred ground, both scientifically and culturally. Led by researchers from the University of Copenhagen and backed by cutting-edge genomic technology, they began the meticulous process of extracting and sequencing the ancient DNA. Every step had to be performed in sterile conditions to avoid contamination. The stakes were massive. A successful sequence could rewrite human history on the continent. But there was another challenge. The past was not eager to give up its secrets. For years, debates raged about the ethical handling of ancient human remains. The spirit caveman had become a focal point of tension between scientists and Native American tribes who believed the remains belonged to their ancestors and should be reburied. Lawsuits, court orders, and a national conversation about heritage and ownership slowed the research. But eventually, with respectful collaboration and agreement from tribal representatives, the DNA study moved forward. As data streamed in from the genome sequencing, researchers compared it to a vast library of modern and ancient DNA samples from Siberia, East Asia, and dozens of Native American groups. The results were not just surprising, they were revolutionary. The DNA bore markers that connected the spirit caveman to living Native American populations, especially those in Central and South America. But there was something else, a genetic signal hidden deep in the code, a lineage not previously seen in any American genome. The sequencing was complete. The genome of the spirit caveman had been decoded, base pair by base pair, an ancient story written in the language of life itself. The analysis left scientists stunned. Not only was the spirit caveman genetically linked to modern Native American tribes, especially those from South America, but he also belonged to a lineage that diverged from other known Asian populations over 20,000 years ago. This meant that the ancestors of the first Americans had separated from their Asian relatives long before the Bering Land Bridge migration theory suggested. But that wasn't the most shocking part. Hidden within the ancient DNA was a ghost population, a genetic signal from a previously unknown group. Scientists called it Population Y, a mysterious lineage that seemed to share ancestry with Indigenous Australians and Melanesians. How could such a connection exist? Was there a long-lost migration across the Pacific, far earlier than any known voyage? Or had ancient humans traveled along the coastlines of Asia and the Americas, intermixing in ways no one had predicted? Advanced modeling confirmed it. The spirit cave genome held traces of this enigmatic population, suggesting a much more complex peopling of the Americas. The first settlers weren't a single wave of migrants. They were a mosaic of ancient peoples, shaped by time, distance, and survival. With hard DNA evidence now in hand, the narrative of America's first inhabitants was no longer a theory. It was a confirmed scientific reality. It begins over 25,000 years ago in the icy shadows of northeastern Asia. A group of early humans, isolated by climate shifts and glacial barriers, diverges genetically from their cousins across the continent. They are nomads, resilient, resourceful, and unknowingly destined to make history. As the world enters the last glacial maximum, sea levels plummet, exposing a land bridge between Siberia and Alaska, Beringia. But instead of a swift crossing, these people settle in this frozen corridor for millennia, adapting to the harsh, tundra-like environment. Then, as the ice begins to retreat, a small band ventures south, through a narrow passage between melting glaciers, or perhaps along the Pacific coastline, using rudimentary boats carved from trees. They carry little, but within them, they carry everything: language, culture, memory, and genes that will echo through millennia. As they move deeper into the Americas, they splinter into new groups, populating vast landscapes from the Arctic Circle to the southern tip of Chile. Along the way, they encounter and intermix with other early arrivals, some from unknown origins, including the elusive population Y, whose legacy lingers in the DNA of isolated tribes in the Amazon. They hunt, build, adapt. Their footprints, tools, and bones become the clues we piece together today. Their myths become oral histories, and their presence, long denied or misunderstood, is now scientifically undeniable. The peopling of the Americas was not a single migration, but a tapestry woven over thousands of years, shaped by climate, geography, and the indomitable will to survive. The story of the first Americans is no longer just a legend carved into stone or whispered around campfires. It's now etched into DNA, undeniable, testable, real. Ancient genomes have shattered the simplified myths of a single migration and revealed a far deeper, more intricate saga of survival, adaptation, and human resilience. From the wind-blasted caves of Nevada to the dense jungles of the Amazon, every discovery paints a more vibrant picture of who these early settlers truly were. They were not just hunters or wanderers, they were innovators, explorers, and storytellers. Their genetic legacy endures in modern Native American tribes, in the languages that still echo through forests and mountains, and in the mysteries that continue to surface from the earth. But perhaps the most humbling revelation is this: the true history of the Americas is still being written. With every excavation, every new sequencing method, every unexpected clue, we edge closer to understanding our collective past. What other ancient secrets lie buried, waiting for the right question to unlock them? How much of what we know is simply what we haven't yet discovered? If this journey through time fascinated you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more science-driven revelations, and dive into our other investigations into humanity's forgotten chapters. Because in the DNA of our ancestors lie the keys to our future.